What's up, everybody, and welcome back to round two of Leadership Live. I missed you guys. I hope you guys had a good week. It's snowing in Nebraska for those of you that care. I care. I don't know if any of you care, but I do. This entire show tonight is dedicated to events. I get asked about events every single school we go to. Every single time I hop into a high school, talk to leadership classes, they bring up events. And so in the comments section and that theme or that feed that we've got going, I want you guys to drop your questions that you have about events. I want you to ask me questions about why we do them, how you can do them better, how you can get more people involved, what the point of these events are. And so events is a big deal. And I want you guys to talk about those tonight on this show. What event has the biggest impact on your school? And I want you guys, I know there's not a lot of characters that you can type in the thread, but I want you guys to put the event that has the biggest impact in your school in the feed so we can see these things. We're going to talk a lot about why these things are important, why they make a difference in our school culture and our school climate. So the way tonight's show is going to work is Kayleen, everybody give it up for the house DJ. Woo! Yeah.
Cheer for me!
We need more from you guys. All right.
There's three people here.
There's only three people.
Yeah,
it's me, you, and that guy. And so no, we're gonna have Kayleen ask me the questions that I get asked all the time, and we're just gonna have a big giant conversation tonight about events, why we do them, why they're important, maybe why they're not, how we can do them differently. And so we're gonna roll through the questions that I get asked the most. And if you guys have a question about events at all at your school, please put those in the feed. Maybe it's about how your leadership class can do less, do more, whatever it is. I want to talk about events tonight, and that's what we're going to do. So, Kayleen, I want you to fire away on your first question you have for me. I'm excited.
Okay. So, pretty much, what is the deal? Like, how do you deal with not enough people coming to the events? So, you throw an event, you put all this work into it, and then the same people come or not enough people will come.
So not enough people showing up to your event is the biggest issue we have here. And so here's what I think. I think that who didn't shut their phone? Who didn't shut their phone off?
Amber?
Oh man, it was me. It was me not shutting my phone. Who's calling me? Who is that calling me? Is that you calling me? You like how we did that? How we did that with this phone thing? This is really cool. Not planned at all. Staged it. Totally. Listen, guys, call me anytime. All right, here's the deal. I'm going to use this phone, and we're going to explain something real quick to you. And so here's the deal with events.
For you visual learners.
For all you visual learners out there, I'm going to break down events for you real quickly. Here's the way that I like to think about this. Most of the time, when it comes to events, we're professionals. Most of the time when it comes to events, here's where I think the breakdown happens. I think most of you guys spend too much time worrying about who doesn't show up than you spend worrying about who does. The conversation that I have with leadership classes consistently is, how do we increase attendance? And I honestly think you increase attendance when you stop focusing on attendance. And so here's what I mean by this. I call this the 80-10-10. I'm going to use this little diagram here to show you. So here's the way that I kind of look at everything. This is the way that I look at events that I throw. If I've ever showed up to your high school to speak, this is the way that I think when I walk onto your campus. I believe you got 80% here, you got 10% here, and you got 10% down here. So here's what I truly believe. I truly believe that 80% of your school, this group right here, they're waiting in the middle. They're waiting to see who's going to show up. Is the popular group going to be there? Is it not going to happen? Is there a negative energy at this event? Is there a positive energy at this event? This middle group right here, I truly believe is waiting to see what the rest of the school is going to do. And they're going to show up based on who you as a leadership class focus on. This top 10% right here, these are your positive kids. This is you as a leadership student. These kids show up to events. They're excited to be there. They have school spirit. They care about culture and climate. This top 10% right here is who typically shows up to events. This middle 80% is waiting to see who's going to get the most momentum. And then we've got this bottom 10%. Now, this bottom 10% right here, this is your negative group. These are your haters. These are your doubters. These are the kids that go to your school that make fun of leadership or don't understand why you do what you do. Every school has these dynamics. You have a middle 80%, you have a top 10%, and you have a bottom 10%. I truly believe that as a leadership class, more often than not, you guys throw an event, you think tons of kids are going to show up, the numbers aren't what you want. And instead of celebrating this top 10% who showed up, you spend more of your time focusing on this bottom 10%. You pay attention to who wasn't there. And when you do that, what happens is you devalue the people who took the time out to show up to your event. And that's why attendance starts to go down, is because we spend more time focusing on who wasn't there instead of focusing on who was. And so I leadership classrooms. I call it the 80-10-10. When you plan they had, or the people who didn't, and why. And I honestly believe if you focus on this top 10%, you're going to start to see attendance go up, and you're going to make a bigger difference in your schools. All right, we're going to try this phone thing. I'm going to take this back.
I'm not a filmer.
You're not. She's all good. She killed it. Listen, guys. We'll set that down. We don't need that anymore. Listen, you can text me anytime, call me anytime. I'll pick up anytime in the middle of a show. I can pick up. So I honestly think that here's how I do this. When I started my skate park, and I'll give you guys just a little example of this. When I started my skate park, I was shocked at the number of people who didn't believe in it, who didn't want to see it succeed, people who didn't think it could happen, people who didn't understand it. And instead of focusing on the people who didn't believe in my idea, I just chose to invest my time and my energy in the people who did, and I was going to build something amazing with them. And so I think for a lot of you guys at your schools, stop worrying about who doesn't show up to your events and start worrying about who does. Celebrate the people who are there. Skate for Change is literally no different. I talk about this all the time. When I go out and skate and I'm giving out socks and beanies and bottles of water, I don't care if 5 kids show up or if 500 kids show up. It doesn't matter to me. All I care about is the kids who show up. I'm going to celebrate them. We're going to go and skate. We're going to give back, and we're going to do a bunch of good. And so what I truly believe, the question, the not enough people are showing up, I honestly believe it's because you spend more time worrying about the ones who aren't there than you invest in and celebrate the ones who did. So a good thing for you guys to think about as you're throwing events this school year. Think about the homecoming dance you maybe already had. Did you guys spend more time being excited about who was there, or did you talk more about who wasn't? And if you're talking about who wasn't there, I think you need to focus on a different group of people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Cool. I call that the 80-10-10. I use that for everything. That's a really good thing. You guys should write that down. 80-10-10. Who you focus your time on is going to determine which one of those things grows.
That's one of my favorites. Remember, we almost got that tattoo.
We're going to get 80-10-10 tattoos.
We're still trying to figure that one out.
We don't know where to put it. It's a weird one.
Yeah.
I don't
Numbers are weird. I don't know.
I don't want to explain it all the time.
We'll tell you later.
I'll let you know where that one ends up.
Okay, so what about, though, the people that, all right, you're focusing on the 10% or whoever that does show up. What about if it's just the same people that are coming? Or you want to have, okay, all right, Mike, we want to focus on a different variety of students. How do you make sure different people are coming to the event instead of like the same people are coming? How do you push that envelope?
So you get different people, you get different interaction. Yeah, totally. And so I think part of the reason why the same people are showing up to events over and over and over is because a lot of leadership classes that we have seen, a lot of these classes aren't a representation of the entire school. I'll go to a leadership class and it's kind of the same type of kid with the same type of GPA who's interested in the same activities and doing the same things. And that's a big part of the reason why a lot of students don't show up to these things that are just different or have different interests, is because your leadership class isn't necessarily always a great representation of your entire school. Sometimes it's phenomenal. Some of you guys out there do an amazing job of getting all the different pockets of kids in your leadership class so you're represented. But I honestly think a lot of the reason why you don't have diverse crowds or attend some of these events is because your leadership class isn't that diverse.
Yeah.
And so you just keep throwing the same events for the same type of people. So I think that's one answer. And then I think the other answer is, it kind of leads back to the Thursday Daily Disrupt from last week, is we need to spend more time as leaders finding out what events are happening on our campus and how we can celebrate those, how we can use those as a way to make a difference. I think that we spend more time trying to throw these big events than we do thinking about, okay, there's these 20 kids in this club, or there's these kids are in band, or these kids are in drama, or these kids are in show choir. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to take a bigger look at our schools and go, okay, we know football's going to happen. Yeah. Our whole feed today was football games and school spirit, and we all know the football game's going to happen, but there are choir concerts, there are band concerts, and I think throwing events for those kids where they're the focus is going to make a big impact on the school as well. Yeah. So I honestly think you need to start coming up with ways to celebrate different groups of people. One of my favorite events that I've ever seen is video game contests. I love that. We're doing it on tour. If you get to see me this year on the tour that I'm going to do, you're going to get to see us host and execute video game contests. I think video game contests.
Excited.
Yeah, they're so sick. They're like, video game battles are like the sickest thing ever. And there's like teachers who love to game, and there are kids who love to game, and they don't always get to do that at school. So throw different events for different types of people. And one of my all-time favorite events is when schools throw or host a special needs prom. I want you guys to, I say special needs prom almost every single time I talk because this stuff is such a big deal. Mm-hmm. Every high school in America should do this. I'm going to show you guys a video of what a special needs prom looks like.
We are a rockin' and busy Renaissance committee year-round. It's every month we have 1 or 2 events going on for somebody in our school or in our community. Through different Renaissance conferences and collaboratives, it kind of kept coming up. How do you really recognize each and every single faction of student that you have in your building? And we realized that we could do better at our school about really making our special needs kids feel a part of and special.
Today we are preparing for our Night to Remember prom. It's our chance for our students to be with their best buddies throughout the school for a social night that they'll never forget.
So they get the full prom experience from beginning to end, but we can kind of control the environment to where they actually get to enjoy being there instead of being overwhelmed.
There's so many people behind the scenes that are preparing this, from flowers to tuxedos. And there's a great coach that we're going to get on to ride over to the prom. Food that's being catered, decorations, and it's just really, it's something magical.
Today in cosmetology, we were doing their hair and makeup. Just to see them walk through the building, like, it just makes your heart so happy and so full.
It just lets the kids feel special about themselves, and it gives them one day to really shine.
That's probably the best part about this too, because like they're all dressed up, and like when they see each other, they're like, oh my gosh, I actually feel like a princess.
It's the one night that you walk away not just proud of pulling an event off, but you feel like you're a better person inside because you got to be a part of something so much bigger than yourself.
Our son is special needs, he's autistic, and they have, for the school, they have put together a prom just for his class.
I've seen Noah interact with his peer buddies at school and at Special Olympics and different things, and they're outstanding kids. Every single time I've been blown away by their kindness. It's Noah, in his mind, those are his best friends. You know, those are his genuine good friends, and they treat him that way. They don't treat him any different, and it's pretty awesome to see that. They're pretty amazing kids.
It's important to me because it's something bigger than I am, and I can be a part of making these kids just have great memories and just bring a smile to their face.
The Renaissance Committee kids get to do the promposal like the kids are into these days.
And what did they tell you? They were throwing you. And you didn't know it. None of us knew it. And we said, what? Yeah. I'll never forget when Shay called her mom on the phone. She came back to the classroom and she called her mom to say, guess what? We're having a prom. And she was just so excited.
Of course, it makes a mom's heart feel pretty good to see your child so happy, and to have your child have this milestone that you maybe didn't think they might ever have. Good feeling.
My favorite part of the evening is when the dance starts, because some of our students love to dance.
It's been fantastic for the kids, I think, that are doing it.
Yeah.
They're involved, and also the kids that are helping. I think everybody gets something out of it.
So just seeing these kids just let loose and have fun and just be a kid, that's my favorite part. And it's like you can't be there and not smile at that. So.
I absolutely love special needs proms. You guys listen to me. If you have that demographic at your school, please find a way as a leadership class to either involve them in your current homecoming or prom, or just host one of those events for those kids. They're so special. Almost every day we go to a school, we spend lunchtime in that special needs class, and it's one of my favorite things to do when I go to schools and speak. And so they're a near and dear group of people to my heart, and so please, you guys, make sure you spend some time thinking about how you can involve them in some of the activities that you do. And if you already involve the special needs demographic in your activities at school, please put that in the comments section. Use the comment section to tell us how you do it so we can celebrate that during the Daily Disrupts, or we can celebrate that online this week as we're talking about events versus intent. And so I really truly believe we've got to aim our focus at different groups of students so we can get different results. That's what I think about that. What's the next question you got for me, Kayleen?
Okay, so I know there's a lot of teachers out there, shout out, are commenting a lot, and I like it. Speaking of teachers, though, so when it comes to your advisor or administration, hire a person and you're just a student and you're thinking, okay, every time I go to them with an idea, they just shut it down or they don't even give us a chance. How do you show administration the importance of an event if they don't agree with it?
How do you show administration the importance of an event if they don't agree with it? Okay, so I think the best way that you can get buy-in from your administration is you've got to think long-term. You've got to think like an administrator. And so what I mean by this is you're in high school for 4 years. Some of you maybe 5, but most of you guys, you're only going to be there for 4. And so you're there for 4 years. So you're thinking in 4-year terms. And if you're a junior or senior, you've only got 2 years left.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the ideas that we go to admin with, their first question is, can this happen when this student or this leadership class is gone? And so if you're coming up with an idea that you want to do, you've got to think like an administrator and understand they're thinking long term. They're thinking in 6, 8, 10-year chunks for the school, where you're only thinking in maybe 2 or 4-year chunks of your time at that school. And so the first thing you have to understand is the events that you guys want to do, if you're having a hard time getting the administrators to buy in, is can this be an event that happens if you don't do it? Can you guys pass the baton to the leadership class behind you so that they can pick up and do this event where you left off? And can they make it better because you guys did it first? And so I honestly think sometimes we think too small scale, and we need to think a little bit more long term when it comes to the events that we do at schools. And I hear that a lot. Students tell me all the time, we want to do this event, and it's this crazy idea, and we asked our admin and they said no. And I always say, an event, like an idea without a plan, is never going to happen. Like if you guys don't have an actual plan that you walk into your principal or your administrator's office with for how this event can be successful, they're not going to say yes. No administrator, no superintendent, no principal is going to get fired for telling you no, you can't do an event. They're going to be questioned if they say, yes, you can do this event, and it goes terribly or it wasn't that well thought out. And so come up with a great idea, come up with an even better plan for how that idea can happen, and then make sure your plan involves a 2-year plan, a 4-year plan, a 6-year plan, a 10-year plan, because that's truly what leadership is about. It's not about you doing the best event the year that you're there. Some of what leadership is about is creating an event or something that your school can do years after you're gone. And sometimes it's something that's not going to be amazing in your time at that school. It's going to be amazing 8 years later when other students picked it up and ran with it. And so if you're truly trying to lead your school, you've got to think bigger than just your experience. You've got to think about the ones that students after you're going to have as well.
Yeah.
Cool?
Yeah. That's cool. I like it.
What's your next one for me?
Okay. So what about, there's a lot of pressure for leadership kids
Yeah.
to support the school and unify the school, and there's a lot of this thing of you didn't celebrate these people or these, I mean, like all the things we're talking about. So that fear of failure and like not pleasing everyone and not pleasing the school, how do you just get past that, or how do you deal with that with your group or as an individual or whatever?
Yeah, I think the fear of failing or the fear of not pleasing the student body with your events is a real one that a lot of kids are terrified to do. And I think that's why we don't want to change an event, or that's why we're scared to try a new event, is because we're afraid that if we do and it fails, then we're going to get made fun of. People aren't going to believe in our leadership class. So I've seen this a lot when I go to schools. And so I think a big part of this is you have to ask yourself, are you more concerned with what people think about you than you are being a leader and doing the right thing for the school? And so I honestly think that sometimes we do what's easier versus what's right. And so I say things like this all the time. Are you doing what's easier for you, or are you doing what's the best for the school or the best for the students there? And sometimes doing these events is the best thing for the students at your school, and sometimes it's not. But I truly believe that if you're worried about failing the student body, I would say start with more conversations with the student body about your events. Ask them what they want. Ask them if they liked it last time. Like if you guys do an event and it didn't go well, ask a ton of kids why it didn't go well. We're going to talk about, is it next week? We're talking about criticism and feedback. Next week, the whole week is going to be about how to get feedback from the student body, how to handle criticism, how to talk, have hard conversations with each other. And so if you're having a hard time with being afraid to fail as a student leader, I would ask you, are you more concerned with how you feel as a leader, or are you more concerned with the culture and climate that you're impacting for the entire student body? And so I don't ever want to fail at events that we throw, but we fail all the time. We put on shows that people don't go to. We have events that don't work, skate contests that aren't executed very well. But I don't look at it like I failed everyone. I look at it like I've got to learn from this experience and do way better the next time, because there's another event right around the corner. So I think focusing on the failure, which is something a lot of student leaders do, I think you're setting yourself up to not grow as a leader because you're more worried about failing than you are worried about getting better. And so don't look at it, though, as if I failed, I can't do it again or I'm a failure. Look at it like I failed that time and now I've got to get better with it.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
I like it.
Awesome. What's the next one you got for me?
So I remember, so you always say this thing, and I'm sure some other people, you didn't think about it, but you said this thing one time about your coach, your basketball coach, right?
Yep.
Basketball coach was like, I'm going to get the basketball team to go to the band concert, and you wrote like Tuba on your shirt and on your shirts and everything. It was crazy. So that idea I thought was the crazy best idea. And then we went to a school one time, and they had already kind of run with it, but they were like, yeah, we have a checklist of each thing we go to, and we make sure everyone goes to whichever contest or whichever championship or whatever. And it was like a checklist environment, but they weren't excited about it. They were just like, yeah, we do that. We already, I don't know. How do you, like, what do you think about going to events, and how do you keep track of that, or keeping score of it? 'Cause
Yeah.
it's a great idea, but how do you make it not a negative? Because I see people running with it and it turning bad.
Right.
Kids getting like selfish or butthurt about who's going
for
to
sure,
what.
For sure. And so I think the big thing for a lot of leadership classes is if you're going to celebrate students and you're going to, go to events, and I've seen it too. There's like a checklist on the wall of like,
Yeah.
we went to a band concert, we went to a choir concert, we went to this, we went to that. And so
It's a good idea.
it's a great idea, yeah. But then it feels like a chore.
Yeah.
It feels like something you have to do versus something that you want to do. And so here's what I want you guys to understand. And here's what you have to realize is leaders, and I mean this. This is the tweet of the night. This is the quote of the night, is that leaders don't keep score. They do not. You can't keep score. And what I mean by this is so many times we want people to show up for us first before we're going to show up for them. And if we're forced to show up for other people, it feels like a chore, and we start to keep score. You didn't show up for me, so I'm not going to show up for you, or we get bitter about things. And so what I would say is understand, leaders do not keep score. They don't. Leaders understand that they're the ones that have to go first. They have to celebrate others first, so we create a culture of celebration on our campuses. That is what has to happen. And so for a lot of you guys out there, if celebrating your classmates, if going to events feels like a chore, or if you're keeping score on the whole nobody showed up for me, so I don't want to show up for them thing, you've got to understand, leaders do not keep score. They know what to do in a moment, they do that thing, they learn from it, and they move on. And so I honestly believe we spend a lot of time as student leaders keeping score of what's happening at the school versus trying just to go and lead and do the right thing. And so I'm telling you guys, leaders don't keep score. Stop keeping score. Show up to these events, do it because you're stoked about it, and know that it means a lot to people. And people aren't always going to show up for you. I do a lot of stuff that people don't always show up for. I do a lot of things that I'm super passionate about. I invite people, and not everybody can make it, and that's okay. I truly don't think that leaders keep score. I think they're just trying to lead, and they're trying to make a difference. So that's what I would say.
You said something one time. I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure it was cool when you said it. So I wrote it down in the moment, and then while we were planning this thing, I thought this was a good spot. You said one time, the moment different groups have the power to celebrate each other, it flips the culture of the school.
Absolutely.
So taking that broad idea and then just running with it in a positive way, not in a keeping score way.
Absolutely.
Is it's cool. But I really like that. Like the power to celebrate flips the school. You're like, oh gosh.
Yeah, that's
you can see that and feel that.
You can feel it.
I like that one a lot.
You can feel a school when you walk into it, and they have a culture of celebration. And that's why I think for most of you guys, the events that you do, the things that you create, I want you guys to take a deeper look and figure out, why do you do these things? Why do you have the events that you have? What's the outcome that you're looking for? And I honestly think most of the stuff that we do when it comes to events, we need to challenge our intent. We need to have a real, honest conversation about what is the intent we have as leaders behind this event that we're doing. Are we doing it to celebrate ourselves? Are we doing it to celebrate others? Are we doing this because we've always done it? Are we doing it because it's going to make a difference? Try and sit down this week and look at the list of events you guys have already done this school year and go, what was our intent for that event? And if you don't know what the intentions were, figure out why you did the event in the first place. But the best leaders understand the intent behind the event. And the intent behind the event doesn't have to be, we're going to totally flip the school culture and climate. Sometimes it's as simple as, we just wanted to say thank you, or we just wanted to have fun, or we just thought it was a good thing to do. But you've got to challenge yourself. What is the intent behind this event? And so this week's whole entire week is structured around intent versus events. The Daily Disrupt is focused literally on, what are your intentions? Why are you doing these events? Because the best leaders on the planet, they don't keep score, and their intentions are to make a difference. And so I want to challenge you guys in the events that you do. What is the intent behind all of these events that we're throwing? And if you can't come up with a good answer, don't do the event. Move on and give that time and energy to something else, to something bigger. I think that's it for the questions you had, right?
Yeah.
That's it. And so I'm going to check out the thread here. I haven't been looking at it. And so, do you have any questions from the
Yeah, I've got some I've
You've
seen.
got some. All right, cool. And so if you have questions, we're going to do some Q&A for the next little bit here, and I'm going to try to answer as many of your questions as I possibly can. And so if you've got a question on here, type it in this thread. I'm going to get to as many as I can. I want to answer what I've got.
So Colton asked,
What up, Colton?
I
like that name.
I just remembered I talk all the time on this, and I say, people have been coming at me that I say, asked. Colton asked. Does that sound weird? Okay.
No, you sound
anyway, Colton asked, what's the best way to have events that keep people's attention?
Yep. And so the best way, and I go through this a lot, the best way to have events that keep people's attention is simple. Have a shorter event. They don't have to be super long. I know that not every Sunday night people are going to sit down for an hour and watch a live stream. They got football to watch. They got homework that they didn't do. They got dates to go on. People got stuff to do. I totally get that. And so you've got to be mindful of people's time. And so sometimes events are way too long. Some of the high school events I've gone to are hours too long. You guys shorten your events so you can keep people's attention span. And also, if you're losing people's attention, I think about this when I speak at schools. When I talk at a high school, I rarely see a kid on their phone because what I'm talking about is more interesting than what is happening on their phone. So if you're struggling to keep people's attention at your events, I would say maybe they're not interesting enough and you guys need to tweak what you're doing. And so for me, it's all about shorten the event, make it more dynamic, and try to figure out how to involve more people. But yeah, I think there's a big part of the school culture where events are way too long and they need to be shorter. What's the next one?
Okay, so Haley asked, how do you check your intentions for an event? Like, how do you check if your intentions are right, and how does that play out in the event?
It's perfect. That question's perfect. Here's why, Haley. Great question. Great question, Haley. Here's why this is so important. How do you check your intent is, what are your core values? We just talked about it last week. This is why core values is so important. You want to know what your intentions are? Go back to your core values. Run your event through your core values. Does homecoming check your core values off the list? Does special needs prom check those core values off the list? Does your pep rally check those core values? And so this is why core values are incredibly important for you guys to set up. If you don't know what's important to you, what your values are, then you have no idea what your intentions are. And so fill out that core value sheet that we gave you guys and actually talk about this as a leadership class. I think Lisa was talking about how their leadership class had great conversations this week because they talked about core values. And so you guys, core values matter. That's where you get your intentions from. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
And we're going to be sending something on Tuesday.
Yes, Tuesday's Daily Disrupt's a big one. That's going to be a big one. We're talking all about intent versus event. We're sending them, I'll give a secret away. We're sending you guys an entire checklist on intent. It's an intent checklist, and it's going to be a great thing for you guys to ask yourselves before you do events.
Yeah.
So we'll help you make sure that they work.
I'm really excited about that.
Tuesday's going to be a good day. It's a good day around here.
I see that being like printed, laminated, and then you're sitting down having a meeting, and it's like, oh, let's go through the pre-intent questions. And you're checking them off, and then you're fixing your event, and you're changing things. I like it.
Lisa just said, is that what it means when my students get on their phones when I'm teaching? Here's the deal, Lisa. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying that
people's attention.
That maybe Lisa, I love you, but maybe Lisa, we've got to figure out a way to do some different things. Lisa, hit me up, email me. We'll talk later. Hit me with the next
You're
question.
hitting her personally.
I love it. She's right here. I love Lisa. She's great.
I like it too. Okay, so someone said, sorry if I couldn't find your name. I copied the question. So someone asked, I've been trying to figure out how to do the gaming event. How do you do it?
Yep.
Sounds awesome.
Absolutely. And so gaming is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And so here's my commitment to you guys. I'm going to send anyone who's taking this class, I'm going to send this to everyone. I'm going to send something out this next 30 days that's my top 10 tips or tricks to hosting a video game event at your school. I'm going to send you guys a copy of how to do it. I'm going to show you how it works. But if you want to have a video game contest at your school, the best place to start is sit down with the kids who game and sit down with the teacher who still plays video. I don't care if it's Fortnite. I don't care if it's Smash Bros, Rocket League, Tetris, Sega Genesis, whatever people are playing out there. Sit down with the people who are gamers at your school and ask them what kind of event they want to have, and then use the gamers to help you create that event. Some of the best leadership classes in the country, they don't actually create a lot of the events that they do at their school. They ask the school what events you want, and they work with the school to plan them, and then they go execute them. And so if you want to have a video game battle at your school, I'm going to send you my 10 best ideas for how you can pull that off. But the first place you have to start is sit down with kids at your school who are passionate about gaming and ask them to help you create the event. We got time for one more, and then we're going to get out of here.
Okay, so Haley is killing it tonight. And asked another question.
On fire.
But it's similar to what you just kind of said about how do we get our whole leadership class more in the events we do, like more involved and not be the same people planning. But basically that's what you said earlier, like get them involved in the planning process.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and I here's the thing I want to talk about with events too, is here's what you have to understand is not everyone in your leadership class has the same skill set. They don't. As a student leadership class, you've got some kids who are really good at marketing. You've got some kids who are really good at ideating. You've got some kids who are going to be really good at ideating,
All right.
thinking of ideas. It's a big word. So you've got some kids who are really good at like setting up the event and cleaning up after the event. You're going to have some kids who are going to be really good at working with administration to make sure it checks all the boxes and they're really organized. Not all of you guys are wired the same. And so if you're having a hard time getting some of your student leaders engaged in helping you guys create and execute events, I think you've got to come up with what I would call like smaller committees. And so I've got people who are great at marketing on my staff, and I ask them to do marketing. I don't have them do other things. I've got some people on my staff who are great at setting up the event and tearing down the event and making sure that everything's looking the way it's supposed to look and functioning the way it's supposed to function. So I have them focus on that. They don't really focus on marketing. And so you've got to make sure you're setting your leadership class up to use their skills, use their talents, and also make sure that the team is communicating and working together. A lot of events get saved for the last minute. I know you procrastinate. I know I procrastinate. I know that you procrastinate as well. And so for a lot of us out here doing events all the time, we let stuff and we save stuff to the last minute. And when that happens, I honestly believe it's if we don't have people in specific roles, it makes it really hard to pull these events off. And so come up with specific roles for your classroom, hold each other accountable to those things. If some of your students aren't carrying the weight, then step up, be a leader, call them on it, have a conversation about why, and then continue to execute on that event. But so many times student leadership classes save the work of the event for one or two students who end up doing all of it. And that's not a recipe for success. You guys got to spread the work out, be committed to getting involved, and you use your different talents and strengths. And that's how I think you guys are going to start to get more of your student leaders involved. And so that is going to conclude tonight's episode of Event versus Intent. I'm going to shoot you guys some really cool daily disrupts this week. I want you guys to make sure you check those things out. Tweet at me, use the hashtag LeadershipLive, any other questions that you guys have. The disrupt that I sent you on Thursday was challenging you guys to go have conversations with different students at your school and different groups, different clubs. Make sure you guys take some time this week to start asking different groups and different clubs at your school what they value, what events matter to them, so you guys can learn how to use those things to continue to impact your school culture and your school climate. I really appreciate you guys tuning in to this week's episode of Leadership Live. We'll see you guys in the daily disrupts throughout the rest of the week, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys next Sunday night where we talk about criticism, feedback, and how to deal with some haters. Next week's going to be a good one. Make sure you tune in. Thanks, guys. Have a great Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.